Alright, so by this point we've spent time defining the dashboard's purpose and thought about which metrics, visuals, and filters best align with that purpose. So now it's time to dive into our data and start preparing our dashboard. So to follow along, make sure you go into the course resources and open this workbook here, which is the Maven Toys monthly sales. And once you're in here, you'll see that we have the data here, which contains sales figures for Maven Toys from January 2020 all the way down to July 2021. And you'll also see that we have two other tabs, so one for August and one for September 2021. And we're going to be using those to simulate the passing of time and to check that our dashboard is automatically updating as we add this new data. And the first thing that we're going to do to prepare for that is to format our data range as an Excel table. So to do that, I'm going to select any cell within my range and press Ctrl T. You'll see that Excel will automatically detect the entire size of our data range. It will ask us if we have headers. We do. So let's just press OK. And this is now an Excel table. Now, beyond the default formatting that is applied here, we can also tell it's a table because with any cell within that table selected, we get this table design contextual menu. And within this menu, we can change the table name. So let's make this something simple like data. And let's get rid of the formatting. So go into table styles and clear that because we do have our own. Now, this is going to help us in two ways. Number one, Excel tables automatically absorb new data that is added underneath them. And two, Excel tables allow us to work with structured table references, which, as you'll see in a few moments, make writing and reading formulas much easier. But for now, it's time to create our data prep tab. So let's do that. Let's call it data prep. And let's start preparing our filters. So we know that Andy asked for a region filter specifically. Let's take care of that first. We're going to need a unique list of regions. So let's bring that in here. Go to data, select the regions, paste them in here, and then go to data, remove duplicates, and press OK. And then let's add a selection. So we need a data validation list. Go to data, data validation, list, and the source is going to be my regions right here. Press OK. And there we go. Now let's add some of our trusty formatting. Let's go bold, white, and a dark blue background. And with both cells selected, press Ctrl 1. And in the alignment tab, let's just center across selection here. And then make these bold and with a light blue background. Okay, so that's taken care of. What other filters do we need? Well, we know that the dashboard will be reviewed every month, so we are going to need to show the data for the most recent month, which means that we need a date filter. And we're going to need the current year and the current month. Now, in the last project, we were able to hard code the current year in here and use it as a filter. But we can't do this time because if I just write 2021, then when our data inevitably reaches 2022, then this is no longer going to be accurate. So what we need to do is calculate the current year using a max formula. So I'm going to write max, open parentheses, go to my data tab, and we need the max from the year column. Now in the past, what we would have done is select the entire A column, which would get us the correct result. But now that we have this data formatted as a table, we can take advantage of this and check it out. If instead of clicking on the entire column, I click on my column header here in row 1, you'll see that I get that same arrow. And if I click on it, not only do I get the entire column selected, but if we look at our cell reference, this is what we would call a structured table reference. So what this is telling us is that we want the max from the year column in the data table, which is much easier to read. So let's just close this parentheses, press enter. We do get the correct result. And now let's do the same for the month. Again, hover over the top. We get the month from the data table. Close that, press enter, and we get a result of 12, which, as we know, is not correct because if we go back to our data tab and we scroll down, the current month is actually July, but this is July 2021, and our max function doesn't know that. It's just looking for the highest value in our month column, which is actually December from 2020. So what we need to do instead is write a max if formula. So we're going to write max ifs, open that up, and we do want the max month, but only when the year is equal to the current year. Close that, press enter, and now we get the correct result of 7. Now, max ifs is only available on Excel 2019 or on Excel 365. So if you are working on an earlier version, then you may have tried to write the max ifs formula and found that you don't have it. But don't worry, I do have good news for you. You can actually get the same result as we did here by using an array formula. So I'm going to write it right here next to my 7. And what we want is the max if, so we're going to open another if function inside the max function, and we're going to ask if the year is equal to the current year, then my value if true, I want you to return the month for that year. And if we close this if function, and then we close the max function, what the max function is going to do is return the greatest value from the month where the year equals the current year. And before I go ahead and press enter, and before you do that as well, in case you're following along, what we actually need to do is press Control-Shift-Enter. And what that's going to do is add these curly brackets around the formula here, which is what's telling Excel that this is an array formula. But if you did follow along correctly, then you'll see that we get the same exact result. Alright, so that's the part of the date filter that will need to show the most recent data. But like we established, the end users also need to see year over year and month over month KPIs. And in order to calculate them, then we're going to need the value for the previous year. Let's write that. And for the previous month. Now the previous year is easy enough to calculate. We just need to get the current year and subtract 1. But we can't do the same for the previous month. It would work now, but if the current month was January, and if we just subtracted 1, then we'd get a previous month of 0, which is not correct. So what we need to do is write an if function so that if the current month is equal to 1, so January, then it returns 12, which is December, because that's the month that comes before January. Otherwise, it can just subtract 1 from our current month. Press OK. You'll see that we are getting 6 now, but let's test out our formulas. Let's go back to Data tab. And let's change this last value to 2022 and 1. And if we go back to Data Prep, you'll see that now the current month is January 2022, and the previous year is 2021, and the previous month is December, which is perfect. So let's go back to Data. Let's change this back. Go back to our Data Prep tab. So this is all working. Now let's just apply the formatting really quick. And there we go. Our filters are all set.